there's truth in everything, of course. There is an element of truth in everything, and at one point I was more researching that kind of things, you know, the conspiracy side of things, and how food is used to make us ill, and the water supply and chemtrail and all that stuff, and it all has an element of truth in it, and it goes to a bigger agenda. But even the bigger agenda then on this planet goes to a bigger agenda again, which you know about, and then there's a bigger agenda again, and so you can, once you start focusing on that stuff, it can send you down a spiral of fear, and it's all about what you put your focus on. From my perspective now, it's an awareness of, yes, those things do exist, yes, those things are happening. Is me being afraid of it going to help anyone? And are those things going to continue in the future? Yes. In a future. Do I choose to experience that future? No. And the only way to really do anything about it is come from a positive perspective in your life and try to be an example to as many people as you can through this kind of thing that we're doing right now. Getting the information out there, energy healing, being a medium, whatever it is you're doing, helping in the financial system, the military or whatever, because you know, like I said, there's good people everywhere trying to do great things. So yeah, it does go on. There is, but it's such a vast subject that I wouldn't really want to go into the whys and wherefores. Well, of course it would. At least. The basic, in a nutshell, we know it's to do with power and control, why all these things are done, and you know, that is why we're seeing so much terrorism and things at the moment, and because they're losing the grip on that power. It is changing, the consciousness evolution is happening, and that's what they're fearing. They're living in fear now, and so they're kicking out at the good people. So that's why that's happening again more and more now.
There's an interesting concept on it. I don't know what your opinion on it. I've had, as you well know, I've had extreme paranormal experiences, and there's an interesting concept where in some of the alien literature that I've read, including the guy Alec Newald, Co-Evolution, the New Zealand contactee, the situation occurred where the ETs have said to him that this planet is occupied by a dark force and needs to be respected, and it is. What I find fascinating, and I just wonder what your take on it is that whatever this force is, what is strangely darkly comical is the fact that it is aware that it needs to evolve as well, in the direction we're going, which is incredible.
When that stuff was written, it was true, but again, it can be a misinterpretation of what is actually going on, and it was that we were in that negative, dark energy. That was what was driving us. It was more conductive for us to be in a negative state of being.
And that's interesting. Conductive for somebody to be in a negative state of being.
It was easier for us to be like that. We were more in alignment with that energy. So it was easier for us to be horrible and for us to war and kill each other. It was much more easier to do that. Moving into 2012, from in a linear perspective, it's become less and less and less conductive for us to be like that. 2012 was the fulcrum point of that energy, and into 2013 because of how long it took to balance. Now what we say is we're in year 2 of where it's more conductive for positive energy. So that's the flow that's changed. So you could interpret it as, yes, there's a negative entity controlling the mass consciousness and humanity. Yeah, you could see it like that, but now that's changed.
And it has changed, hasn't it?
It has changed, and you can feel it yourself. And over the last 2 years, we wouldn't be having this conversation if we hadn't. I'd still be stuck on a power station, getting drunk every night, having a terrible relationship with my wife and kids, and we would literally not be here having this conversation now. So it is happening, and what's happened is basically that yes, it does go to do with other agendas of other races and people that have been manipulating the reincarnation process and all things like that, which has changed now. They've literally, the quarantine's over and they've literally been kicked out. Those beings, those energies have literally been kicked out. The remnants of what you see now on the planet with the elite, the Illuminati, the Cabal, whatever you want to call them, they literally haven't got that backing anymore of that energy pushing them. They're on their own. So they're confused and scared because it now is more conductive with the positive energy.
Have you had any strange approaches then? Would you be like a guy who's really at a certain level?
Not really, no. And considering, that I'm very open on the internet and things, I have experienced helicopters and things like that, like you have. Psychic attacks as well, which came to me through the dream state and through one of the first things that happened to me was I started one of the first visions that I started having after I had my eagle vision was in here as well, walking into this back room. There's a lot of activity in this room that, I'm not going to talk about vortexes and things today, I don't think, but I literally got a flash of what you would call an archon or an archontic ET, and it was literally like it was there in front of my face, and it would have been to a lot of people very scary, but very intuitively I just smiled at it and it disappeared, and that happened about 3 or 4 times over the space of a week, and I believe they were a type of psychic attack. And how all this works to do with frequency and things like that, and that vision that I got was an interpretation of the energy that was being projected to me. So because I'd fought that energy, thought's the wrong word, with positive energy and not hit resistance against it with fear, it literally couldn't come near me anymore. And the same thing happened in the dream state of I started having dreams where I was chased by helicopters and the military shooting at me, literally trying to kill me.
A lot of
people do, yeah. And again, that's a certain frequency that's emitted to people that puts them in that state, and that's how they interpret the dream in various ways. The same thing happened again. Even in the dream state, I managed to get away and hide and not get damaged. And when I woke up in the morning, I just did a little meditation or affirmation to say that isn't going to happen again. I don't need that to happen again. I understand what it is. I'm coming at it from positive energy. You literally can't hurt me. You can't do that to me. I'm not in alignment with it. And they stopped. They literally stopped, and that was it. I never had anything else since then, and I've never been approached by anyone, or I have experienced a few government trolls and stuff like that on the internet, which again you just have to deal with them the same way. Come from a higher perspective, and it's like anything. If you fight fire with fire, it creates more fire. If you come to it from a state of neutrality, like water, you'll eliminate the flame.
I'm thinking of what happened to me this morning, which we won't go into, but it's very true that I'm having to really make the effort, as the Bhagavad Gita says, where you have to align yourself with Krishna consciousness. A couple of times I've been talking to Johnny, I've been hit by a negativity state that's come in, gone out again, and I know what it is. It's exposure to elements of chaos, let us say, within a continuum environment. It's complex psychic stuff, but a couple of times I've had to correct myself. This is the mental discipline that I've had to learn because it's my journey, so I've had to just correct myself and go higher and continue it. And it says in the Bhagavad Gita that to experience Krishna's consciousness, what you have to do is every minute of the waking hour when you're kind of like confronted by these kinds of, and as you rightly said, it's like a magnet in it, and you go attracted, it attracts to you. But I will always say, viewers, that you get whacked because you're not weak. You get whacked because you're powerful.
Yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Of course it is,
it's power. And that's what it is about. It's all about the manifestation of intent. But I think if it wasn't for Johnny, ladies and gentlemen, I'd be in a worse state than Russia with it, because he's introduced these concepts. Little does he know, but he's introduced these basic concepts. Because, as I say, you can be the CEO of a large company, have a massive workforce, but if you forget how to sweep the shop floor, then you're fucked. Pardon my language, but that's it, innit? You're screwed, aren't you? And that's it. So I think. Yeah, thank you very much. I don't think you've got else to add, but
Well, I suppose that's what I'm all about, really, and that's what I've want to bring to people is these high level, high vibrational ideas and concepts, and bring them down into terms that people can understand.
Correct. Yeah.
And work on the different levels depending on the person that I'm dealing with at that time. So. And it's so important, and you're right what you're saying, that a lot of esoteric material, spiritual material, it all goes a little bit too airy-fairy and too deep or too intellectual, and I can go there if I need to go there, but if you can break these things down and make them into more metaphor and analogy with people, it can really hit a wider audience and be more receptive.
It's more facilitating, isn't it?
Of course it is. Of course it is. But that's where we're going, and it's not just me. There is other people doing it as well, and it is. It's a very exciting time if you allow it to be. It really is. If you allow it to be, or if you choose to enter the fear state, it really is a choice. One more thing I'll just touch on, which we didn't go into before, was to do with time and parallel realities again, and how the UFO, many of the UFO craft work. I'm sure you know that a lot of them work on, say, an anti-gravity or electromagnetic field type of energy. Now, a lot of the more advanced ones literally organic ships that are grown and interact, have a consciousness of their own, or an artificial intelligence of their own, which is a consciousness within itself, which comes from what I'd call a different pool of consciousness. That's right. Other than sentient beings like us.
That's correct. So when we're just come in a minute there, viewers, because he's on a roll, but. So, for example, on the Skywatch tonight, there's a possibility that instead of communicating with the beings in the craft on the Skywatch, you may actually communicate with the ship itself. Because it is artificial intelligence. And a Czechoslovakian, a lady in Czechoslovakia who was having interaction with UFOs, was telling me about a conversation she had with a UFO occupant who referred to their ship with great affection, as if it was also with them as a being in its own right. And this has brought, with some of these visitations that are going on, it's brought their own technological problems as well, because it would appear that some of these, similar to Windows going wonky, with us these ships can go wonky and go off at their own accord and do their own thing. Look in the Indian press on that, there's a lot of that going on where they can replicate, do all kinds of things, plus they become conscious, living beings, and there's kind of like, and it brings in the concept, Johnny, thinking out the box, do they have human rights? Human rights, but do they have rights as a conscious individual? Do these beings give them rights?
And it's a fine line, isn't it, between what you call alive and not.
It is.
So and there's a lot of actual programs that are on at the moment dealing with things like that. Like I think one of them's called Human, to do with an artificial intelligence and things like that. I've not actually seen it, but I've seen the idea, and I kind of thought, and that's part of the slow disclosure of these things coming into our reality. That's right. And the film a few years ago, AI, was a great example of that. Of where is the line between this artificial intelligence created being having rights and being treated like a person, or just being still seen as a machine. And it's interesting that about the ships and going haywire and things like that, and very often that can be as well why they enter into our dimension, into our reality by accident, because these ETs do have the power to control when to phase in and when to phase out, or decloak, if you want to use that term, because they're always there. It's just they're not always perceivable. So yeah, sometimes it is when they go go haywire,
so
and it is a merging of consciousness that they have usually.
Where did you learn that concept from? Considering that you're a man who didn't visualise, you had injuries, and you've done this in 2 years. I knew this not from any book source, but I knew this from them. But you seem to. Did you learn it from? Where did you learn that from?
A lot of this information has come from the entity Bashar, which is from the Essassani civilization, which are a future hybrid race that have partly got human DNA, which is to do a lot with the Greys and the hybridisation program, and why a lot of abduction takes place to harvest is probably the closest term, our genetic material to help create those races. And because what my interpretation of the Greys is that they are an offshoot or a parallel version of humanity that went through their own self-destructive process, and through that process had to create themselves into this being that they are now, or change themselves, transform themselves into this being, and through doing that lost all their ethics and emotions and just ended up a more intellectual race. So to help them survive, to help the rest of their race survive, that is why they are now here, getting that DNA and those codes to help create the further hybridized race, which is what we'd call the Essassani. So even though a lot of the time these context experiences aren't the most pleasant, the actual reason behind it is for a benevolent reason of expansion and growth of the human race further down the timeline. But again, they literally don't have any concept of the ethics and how to treat people. It's just not in their reality to see it like that. But and again, we have agreed to these experiences on a before we're born, if you want to put it that way, because we do kind of plan the things that we're going to experience in our life, give ourselves these challenges, but they don't always turn out the way that we plan them, because that is life.
And yet there again, this is where it goes, the cross correlation, which Johnny's made the remark there that we plan that, but yet my experience, and this is why I say it in public, make an informed choice. Don't necessarily believe what he's saying, don't necessarily believe what I'm saying. Yeah. You've got to make an informed choice, because from my experiences, that's the opposite of what he's saying. From my experiences, there is conflict among the UFO visitation that's going on regarding ethics and how they are approaching human beings and how human beings are treated. There is conflict, for example, in terms of children and hybrid integration and all that kind of thing. And some of the things that Johnny's coming out with is only learnt from actual direct contact experience, which is why I'm so interested in what he has to say. He's talking about a future parallel timeline, hybrid race, aren't you? And possibly hybrid integration into our society as well. So, the children walking down the street, you wouldn't even recognise them, they look perfectly normal, but in fact they are integrated. Yes. And that's how Channel 4 programme Humans, how close that is to the reality that that you're talking about. Yeah. And sorry, I'm ranting on.
No, it's fine.
It's the time thing anyway. We went off on a tangent, but you wanted to discuss about UFOs and time. Did we get there?
Yeah. I'll go to that now, and then I'll go back to another point in a minute about the hybridisation thing. Well, remind me on that if I forget.
On the hybrid.
Right. So